So we did it again. I found the most epic home studio setup ever. Butch Walker. Rolling Stone called Butch one of America's greatest singer-songwriters and voted him Producer of the Year. Butch truly is an American music industry success. All the way from Georgia to Los Angeles to now here in Nashville, he's worked with an amazing variety of artists and albums that we all know. Taylor Swift to Jewel to Pink to Katy Perry, Avril Lavigne, Train, Rob Thomas, Green Day, Weezer, Fall Out Boy, The Struts, Andrew McMahon, Gavin DeGraw, Keith Urban, and my good friend Mark Sevilla. Hey Mark.
Oh, hi Mark.
And that's just some of the projects that Butch has worked on, either as a producer, an engineer, or a composer or writer. Butch also is an artist with an amazing collection of albums, which he has a brand new album that was literally just released titled Glenn. I'll put a link to it down in the description. Thank you, Butch, for having me out. It was a ton of fun hanging out and checking out your space. It's absolutely amazing. Go follow Butch. Go check out his new record down linked in the description. And shout out to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video. For this week's segment of What's New in the Stew, it's actually something that I got my son. My son has been obsessed with, he's 5, so he obsesses with different stuff every week. But recently he's been hooked on playing the electric guitar. So to help encourage Jack to play a little bit more guitar and have some fun with it, Sweetwater sent me over an Epiphone Power Players Les Paul. It's like a smaller form Les Paul guitar. It's $279, but it's freaking awesome. And it's lava red, so it just looks super rock and roll. We surprised Jack and he has been literally obsessed. He's doing it right now. I gave him the guitar and he was just figuring out how to press the notes on the fretboard, and now he's rocking power chords up and down this Power Player guitar. So yeah, if you've got a little one at home and you're looking for a perfect guitar for them to learn on, this is a great one. Jack is having a ton of fun. I'll put a link to it down in the description. Thank you, Sweetwater, for sponsoring this video, and let's go check out Butch Walker's amazing epic home studio setup.
How's it going? My name is Butch Walker and welcome to the butcher shop. It was an old horse barn. It was literally, you're standing where the tack room was. So when I saw it, it was dirt, kind of dirt floor and saddles all hanging on the walls and everything. So I kind of ended up doing a massive gutting, if you will, and renovation on it. And I took out all the stalls. And over here was like a lounge area that was sort of like an old grandpa like lounge with a big potbelly stove in it and a bunch of cobwebs and dirt. And so just redid it, put in a little bathroom, right over there, and just made this kind of homey for a place for all the artists to come over here and chill. Sometimes we like to work up songs on acoustics or whatever and not even be in the studio before we go in there to track. So this is a good place to come in here and everybody can just sit around and we can pick up a guitar off the wall and just sit and figure out and hash out the song. It gives you a different feel and a different creative environment that it can sometimes be overwhelming and intimidating when you're in the recording room. In here, I just try to make it more like what if you were at someone's house.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes where a lot of the guard is down and the magic comes out.
You kind of maintained the barn aesthetic, and I see you got some animals here and some cool posters. It's a nice.
Well, so my dad was an antique picker. He was an antiquer growing up. So I would go to his antique road shows where he would and help him set up his booths and have all this turn of the century crazy heavy furniture. And funny enough, some of this stuff is his because when he died in 2013, that's when I kind of just nostalgically wanted to honor and carry on his legacy. And I love my parents. They're great people. And so I've got a lot of my dad's old furniture here that, you can imagine when I was growing up a little metalhead in Cartersville, Georgia. In rural Georgia, I was not a big fan of all the old antique, dusty bullshit. But yet it all comes back around, and you finally you get back and you're like, oh, you know what? It's not so bad. I actually kind of love it.
Yeah.
So this whole place is sort of a tribute, I think, to that and to the turn of the century era of furniture and things like that. A lawyer bookcase my dad gave me before he passed away. So I keep a lot of his memoirs, his stuff in there, memorabilia, and fireplace is clearly not antique. So my dad and I'm good friends with Mike Wolf from the show American Pickers.
Oh, okay.
He's my neighbor, and
that's awesome.
my dad met him, and it was like my dad meeting John Lennon.
Yeah.
So that was like my dad's that was his celebrity crush, because my dad grew up doing what he does, which was finding scores and turning around and selling them for a lot of money and restoring old antiques. So I took him to dinner. I took him to breakfast one time to meet Mike. Me and Mike went all to breakfast, and he loved my dad and Mike. So Mike had this refinished and gave it to my dad. Right, and then when my dad passed away a couple of years later, I took it back. So this is the loft, where there was just a loft to go up here, but it used to be just literally a ladder.
Yeah.
And so I built a staircase and kind of made it more of a proper loft, because up here it was just storage and attic. So if you come up, just watch your head. I put some foam there. Right. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Up here, just a little bit of it's storage. There's a little crash pad over here that I have for artists to be able to, if somebody needs to be able to take a nap or sleep for the night, if they've had too much to drink or something and don't want to drive, because we out here, as they say.
Yeah.
And so it's and obviously it's a little depressing right now because I haven't gotten a chance to set it all up. The loft was really, I think it was maybe 6 feet deep and was just planks that you walked out onto.
Oh, okay.
So it was not finished out.
Yeah.
So, you can come in and check it out. Basically, another little hang area where I can come up here and zone out and listen to my records. I got my hi-fi rig over here, and I've got a lot of my records actually from my youth. I was able to get a lot of my collection from my parents, which, I've still got all my, this is it's pretty funny. You can dig in here, and some of these are literally this is, I bought this new when it came out.
Dang.
Which also coincidentally, Kiss was my first concert in 1977. So this tour is what I saw.
Man.
And I was 8 years old. And so I have lots of records still of theirs, and some of them have doodles of girls' names on the back that I had crushes on in school, written in cursive. Remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
And then so it's just a place to hang and chill out, and people come up here at night, and we end up up here after a long day, because it's just you feel like you've left and gone to a club, but you've literally just gone upstairs. That's actually from a cancer charity. I have a pancreatic cancer charity, and I put on fundraiser shows, and I was doing a whole series of them out in Topanga, California.
Oh, no way.
And that's just me and some of my band guys playing one, and my son several years ago, before he shot up and is as tall as me now, getting up and singing with me. And those are moments that to me are special, and he's my world. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So, and then I've obviously got Guitarmageddon over here. There's so much you can't see back in there, but it's a problem. I have there's probably 50 guitars in there.
Oh yeah, I go back.
Cases and all kinds of stuff. This is it's not a political statement. It's just some 70s dad humor. Actually, funny story about that is I had this made thinking it was super clever and funny, and it's nobody ever got it, because nobody knows who America is, the band. Except I feel like I made it just for this one moment where I was riding down the PCH going home when I was still living out west, and I had this bumper sticker on the back of my truck, and I I pulled up next to Neil Young in an old 50s Cadillac with his wife, Daryl Hannah, like under his arm, the whole thing. It was so classic. And I pulled up next to him and I was like, I just gave him a thumbs up and I got up and got right in front of him. And I could see him in my rearview mirror pointing and laughing his ass off at my bumper sticker. This is, where I spend most of my time, which is the old barn, which I just converted into a personal studio. I like a big open floor plan. I don't like to be, more boxed in. It's not my favorite thing to have a separate control room, just because half the time I'm the band on a lot of records where I'm running back and forth, and I really like to drive the computer and all that over here and all the gear myself. I also love when I record full band records, which I do a lot of, and just being able to just talk. There's nothing worse, and artists know this because I've been in this boat myself, where you finish a take, you look in the control room glass, you can't hear anybody, you just see a bunch of people in there laughing. Yeah. And then they finally, like a minute later, hit the talk back and go like, okay, let's do it again. What an awful feeling. And it doesn't do anything for an artist's confidence when they already feel like a monkey in a cage. They already feel like, an animal in a glass cage when you're doing that. So it's just better to just have it be in a big open room. And I know how to get sounds that sound good without having to have isolation. This was a horse barn, 6-stall horse barn, which was mostly just dirt and concrete, and on either side had 3 stalls down each side. And then over here where my ISO booth, it was like more where the washroom was. So there's a drain under the floors there where the horses were washed. But, instead of shoveling, I'd rather try to shovel hits instead of shits, if I can, which is so dumb to say, but my friend said it the other day and I couldn't resist using it. But the thing is I needed to have at least one good ISO booth. So we built this into a nice isolation room where you could I track 80% of the records I do in here on the drums. This is my old C3 piano, which was the first real piece of musical equipment I ever bought with some fuck you money when I made some money from the music business. I wrote like so many records on this piano. Like I said, everything is always on. So everything is mic'd, everything's always live. So if you come and sit down at the piano, and even the microphones, even like this Red 47, which I use as a mono drum close mic, I swivel it around and it's right there, and I just do a couple of changes at the board and I've got my vocal mic. The drums also over here in the live room drums that I have over here in the corner, identically mirrored with my miking setup in the ISO booth. So all I do is patch in 7 patch cables. I just go boom to those inputs from that mic panel, and then that drum kit is live with the same exact settings. And then I can also add the option of live room mics out here as well. So I have my R88 right here. It's a stereo ribbon, and this room sounds really great. It's magical. The heavy lifting for the acoustics is being done by the rough sawn oak walls. Yeah. The oak siding is porous and not reflective, so you don't get that like slap like on drywall. Yep. And that's a beautiful thing because it's also on the overhead ceiling, which is always the enemy because of you get that that kind of a slap. Yeah. But this works great, so that the only thing I've got is the shiplap pine, which is on the sides, the white wall and the ceiling, and that's actually got the panels up there to help break some of that up. You don't need a room to be perfectly tuned and spend $500,000 filling the walls with sand and doing that they used to do in 80s recording studios. Because to make records, I made some of my best records. Some of my favorite moments and best records were done in houses, barns, apartments, not like fancy studios where everybody was intimidated because they were on the clock. Sure, you get like you might get a cute receptionist and a deli tray every day, but like I don't really care about that. I just would rather be in here if I'm going to be by myself, or if I'm going to have a group of friends here working. I want it to feel like they're in my house. This piano is a fun little story. This is Blondie, and that is a C7 1978 C7 Conservatory Grand that was bought new by a woman in my neighborhood, she was a teacher at Juilliard and a, you know, classically trained pianist. Her son, when she passed away, hit me up and said, hey man, we're moving. Said that they didn't have room for this and we're gonna have to sell it and get rid of it because they were downsizing. And he said, if you want it, it's yours and just make me an offer.
Yeah.
So I made him an offer and I brought it home that day. He sent me some pictures of his mom playing it at the house there in Malibu back in the 70s and 80s. And you can see people from like the cast of The Love Boat hanging out, smoking cigarettes and drinking them, singing around it. And so it's got mojo for days and it's really a great sounding piano. I mean, it's just got a, and I'm not even much of a player. But it's just got a great sound. And I keep it mic'd up at all times. And like I said, this just goes like, you know, I got my Red 47 right here that I can just, all the mics are static and can go anywhere in the room, but I keep them by default at the piano because when I come in and I have an idea or I'm writing, I don't want to have to play setup.
Yeah.
Setup sucks. Yeah. And if you're a songwriter, you know, you're not thinking about setting up and A-Bing mic cables and like doing shootouts. Because by then the song idea is gone. I mean, it's gone half the time I get out of the shower, it's gone. So like, I've got to like get this brain while it's happening. So I'll do a lot of like just coming in and everything's already on and I'll just sit down and start writing and then I can hit record and it's already there. I keep all my guitar amps out and over here, which also have, you know, a couple of like, you know, 2 mic setups that I can get where I've got like an SE ribbon and a 57, good old classic combo of a ribbon and a 57 together. These isolators by SE are pretty great. Not for keeping bleed out as, you know, as much as you would have if you did a ISO booth. Sure. But it still controls it a little bit, I think. I am a massive advocate since it came out of using the Universal Audio aux box. Really? And almost all of my amps are going through that first. Wow. So we do that almost every single record. And if we're not getting it, then we can always use the microphones as well. But because I'm recording so much stuff and so many people like live band setups, it's just easier to have the isolation and the separation and all the mics and the cabinet combinations and things like that. And I've yet to have anybody come in here and go like, oh, is that not a real guitar cabinet mic'd up? But sometimes I want the room in here and I want it to be big and airy. So if I do overdubs where I'm not worried about bleed, I'll just crank amps up and put mics up and just hit it. This is, you know, some of my guitars. I keep some of them. I just keep the ones out that I really want to grab and go. So I've got a little block of Gibsons, you know, Les Paul's 67 330, the Gretsch White Falcon, and then some Fenders, you know, Tellys, Jazzmaster, little Squier Cootercaster that was custom made and given to me by my friend Val McCallum. And then, you know, a double neck Rickenbacker, and then basses, you know, cause double necks to make records are not, whatever, useless, but still, no, it's great. I like the 12 on it. The 12 sounds great. And actually the 6-string sounds super, super good. Yeah. I keep a Fender P bass. I keep a Music Man Stingray. And then I've got a couple of little Mustang basses with some flat wounds on them, which are my favorite sound to record. Oh, okay. And I do I do a lot of that. I do a lot of like recording with the short scale flat wound bass. I've got a lot of acoustics, but I keep these out because I really love them. This is my baby that I've had forever. It's a 62 Hummingbird with a Dove tailpiece. Useless in the marketplace because it's a mutt, right? But I bought it for $800 at a store in Spartanburg, South Carolina, probably 20 years ago. I bought it just basically because when I pulled out the case, I didn't even think about looking at the fact that it was not even the correct tailpiece. The bridge was different, everything. The pick guard was off of the guitar, laying underneath it, and it was all bubbled and crappy under it from heat. But that guitar is, honestly, that is the oldest piece of music gear that I own, not year, but the oldest thing to me, because I had a fire in 2007 that wiped us out completely and took the house and my entire studio and every piece of gear I'd ever had my entire life. Everything I'd ever collected over the years, everything burned to the ground. And that was from a wildfire. First year moving to Malibu, which, by the second fire 3 years ago that took half the property, it was time to leave.
Yeah.
But this guitar, as you can see, this wear is mostly by me, because I took this thing on the road everywhere with me for over the last 20 years, and it has been beat to shit. It has been like cracked from head to toe on the backside, like 5 different places. It doesn't even really have any bottom end anymore because of all the cracks, but it records great, and it's just, I've written so many songs on that guitar that are important to me, and so many songs that have done well for me and other people I've written on that guitar. And I mean, I would throw that thing 50 feet in the air on stage and throw it off stage and drop it on the ground and break all the strings every night off of it. And the only reason that is here and wasn't ashes with everything else is because it was in the shop getting those cracks repaired.
Oh, wow.
And I would have cried an extra week if I would have lost that guy. So I'm really glad that this baby is still here. And I don't take it on the road anymore, ever. Because after that, I learned to treat my shit nicer, but also not be precious. I don't have, nothing you see here is like, when kids come in here, I'm like, just pick anything up. I don't care.
That's cool.
I'm harder on it than you'll ever be. Because I lost 46, something like that, vintage guitars in that first fire. And you can imagine, you can't just get that back. Even with insurance money, you're not gonna get those back. After that, I just wasn't precious. I was like, yeah, Fender Relic, that's fine. It will, no one is ever going to play that on a record and go like, and listen back to it and go like, I can tell that that's not a real, I can tell that's not a real vintage instrument. That argument went out the window when, when digital recording came along, and then all of a sudden now everybody tries to make digital sound like a 1960s or 70s record.
Yep.
And you can make it sound exactly like that. And I've had A&R guys where they're like, I'll make something sound super 60s or whatever, and they'll be like, oh, did you record that to tape? And I'm like, and I'll just go like, yes. And they'll go, I can tell it's real warm. And I'm like, this is my LG2 that's strung Nashville tuning. And this actually is fun because this guitar, after the fires, my sister gave it to me.
Oh, cool.
Because I didn't have any instruments. I didn't have any gear. This was a gift from her ex-boyfriend. It stayed under her bed for a long time. And I think she was not excited about him. So she was like, do you want it? And I was like, yes, I do. So it's a cool old LG2. And then Yamaha, who's been great to me, has made me some amazing guitars, as well as like this, I got a LL56, which they only make probably 5 of those a year. Taylor got some cool, these are like for that kind of more bluegrass style. These are the, the Grand Pacifics, which sound great. Then I've got these Harmony, I got some Harmony Stellas and Ks that are all done by my buddy Scott Baxendale for Baxendale Conversions, who I've been using his conversions for years. He takes old Sovereigns and Harmonies and Ks and all these guitars that were made for department stores that they sold for $100.
Yeah.
And you can still get them for $100, but they're pretty beat up.
Yeah.
And he takes them and tears them apart and rebraces them, refrets them, rebridges them, everything. Because the wood was made from great wood. They were just assembled to sell at JCPenney's or whatever, or Sears. So he puts them back together and makes them play and sound almost on par with pre-war Martins. It's wild.
What's the company called?
Baxendale.
Baxendale. Cool.
Conversions. Yeah, and he's a really master of his craft. I've got several drum kits behind there in case we need to pull, and lots of snares, so we can just always pull drums out. But I tend to be a creature of habit. So if something's working, change my underwear every day, but not kick drums.
I was gonna say, what's the the preference for the kit in there versus the kit out here, and why?
They're set up very similar. That in there is an old 50s WFL kit though, so it's a little bit bouncier. You can make it a lot more, jazz, but also rock. This one out here is set up completely dead cocaine disco toms. I think it's in 70s or 80s Ludwig olive badge concert tom kit. And I tend to just love that dead, pillowy, disco kick drum, you know, with the front head off.
What are these Soyuz on the overhead?
Those are Soyuz tube 013. They're 013 tube mics, so they're small diaphragm condensers. They sound so good on overheads. I really have tried everything you can imagine. I've got Coles 4038s. I've got I've got like the Red 47s. I've got all kinds of options, but I tend to love these the most. My mic setup is mirrored in both the drum room. I think I told you that. The ISO booth drums and here is pretty much an identical mic setup. I've got a Calrec mic on the snare. I've got 421s on the toms, very standard. I'm using a Soyuz bomblet, which is sort of like an FET.
Yep.
Sort of like a FET 47 vibe. That's on my kick. And then 013s on the top. So and then the only thing that I've got a specialty mic is back here is I've got a 414 front beater side.
Yep.
And it's in figure 8, and it picks up the snare bottom as well as the kick front. Sweet. And if you play with it and get your phasing right, you can really blow that mic up and get some cool added into your drum sound.
Yeah.
So I tend to like that. I've kind of got it set up for stations. So like, this is where a guitar player typically sits. So they'll sit here and everybody's got their own headphone mix already. I got Aviom systems that'll take care of everybody. The guitar player, he or she can set up their guitar amp right here. And I have a speaker cable right here that just any amp they're wanting to play through, they can keep it right by them and dial it in however they want. And that goes straight to the aux or straight to cabinets. This is a nice little setup. This is my little like vocal area booth. And I tend to record a lot of acoustic guitar on these Soyuz 017 tube mics, which are really incredible special mics. My friend Beck, the singer Beck, he turned me on to this company. Dave Brown, who started the company, was his saxophone player. That he grew up with Beck, and Dave played sax on a lot of the earlier Beck records and horns. He toured with him as his horn player. And he started this mic company, and Beck brought over one of them to the studio and was like, you have to try these out. Like he said, I just turned Nigel Godrich onto him and he bought like a whole bunch of them and said they were as good as any of his 47s. And I'm like, if it's good enough for Nigel Godrich, it's good enough for this dumb. So like, and I'm a big fan of that sound. I love like that, my Chandler Red 47s are also a similar thing, which I love. I just love that. I love mid-range, and I love the mid-range in those microphones. It's very smooth, but it's also very forward. You can add high end and they don't get brittle. So it's a great vocal mic and a great acoustic mic, because if you think about it, acoustic and vocal are all mid-range forward instruments. So this is a great spot to sit. And I feel like I'm name dropping today. My buddy Steven Dorff, the actor, he's my neighbor. We went to a yard sale and he negotiated this 70s chair for me. That is nice. We bought it. Yeah, I bought it for $50. This is like I made this little zone here because it's like, basically I like to repurpose things in the same fashion my dad would have in his spirit. The Stay Gold logo was an old wood emblem that went on the front of our keyboard rig on that tour for the Stay Gold album and tour back in 2016. And instead of just throwing it in storage, I Amazoned 3 coffee table legs and mounted them to the bottom and bought a exact fitting glass top for it. That is cute. This is basically a little hang, which is kind of a nice little spot when you come over for a writing session. Yeah. If we don't go in the lounge to do it, this is a cool little like spot right in the middle to soak up the vibe of this room and everything. You're at ground zero right here in the middle. I don't mean to come off this way, but I'm pretty energy based. Sure. And there's energy right here in this room. I can imagine. And if you walk 5 feet away from it, it's not the same energy. Yeah. And I know that makes me sound like an airy fairy dip, but it's true. There's just the energy right here. So I was like, that needs to be the place to write. Oh yeah, my trampoline, you gotta have that. So very important while listening back to the work you've done while getting in about 50 jumps. M3, little cheap $250 Hammond, which is honestly, I have yet to have anybody tell me after it runs through the Leslie in there that it doesn't sound like a B3 when we record it. Now, sure, it doesn't have the same pedigree and the same legendary status as a big B3 with a matching Leslie cabinet, but I don't give a shit. So it works, it's great, it sounds cool, and nobody's complained yet. So I got my, the rotary speed and everything right there. And so people can sit out here and we can shut the door and get isolation so that I got 2 Coles 4038 ribbon mics on either side of that, picking that up. And that's been a fun little combination that I've been using lately. You saw the drum kit in here, right?
Yeah, it's a WFL3. What do you got on the snare there?
It's a Calrec 1050C, CM 1050C. But these mics are standard issue, again, 421s. I've got the figure 8 front side mic, and then I've got 013s right over here. The only thing I'm doing a little different behind this one is the Red 47, which is my vocal mic for the piano. But I just literally swivel it around and then do a couple of tweaks to it, and it makes an insane front of kit mono mic. I just put a couple of rolling gobos up here in the back just to kind of give us a little bit of it doesn't really isolate us, as you can imagine. It doesn't isolate things, but it definitely controls a little bit of the ambience. It knocks that back a little bit. I've had a lot of consoles over the years. I've had SSLs and I've had Neves, and I had a Quad 8 2082 from the 70s for about a decade, which I loved. But funny enough, I grew up making records on tape and cutting tape, and my favorite records and favorite sounding things I've ever done were all done on API consoles. So I'm like, why don't I have an API? That's ridiculous. So, as fate would have it, I had Dave over at API, my buddy. He hit me up and was like, okay, look, you got to check out this new 2448. They had like I want to say like a demo model or something, but like they basically just did it to my specs. After that, I said I want a 24 channel version, producer's desk on the right hand side with rack space, because I'm keeping it pretty simple with just 2 IOs. So I've just got 2 Universal Audio Apollo X16s, which sound great, and I'm a huge advocate of all things UA. They're an incredible company, and so I've been proud to be part of their family for everything. So I use and the way my workflow is with them is I go back and forth between two DAWs. I use the Pro Tools, the dreaded Pro Tools, which has been in my life as it's like a stepchild I would not be able to get rid of. But I've been using Luna a lot. I love Luna.
That's killer.
I love it. It sounds great. I know that sounds weird because it's a DAW, but it has a thing. And it's also, I just love the workflow. I was a beta tester for it for a long time. So I bounce back and forth, but when I'm in like Pro Tools mode, I keep this virtual console, the UA virtual console, like running always in the background. And basically it's all my lines. So it's basically the front end, Sure. All my microphones are going through the API, everything. So when I want to come in and hear something, I just unmute it from the board and it's live. So if I go here, then this is, that's, so then that's live. I can just do Law and Order theme music all day long. But so anytime I just unmute something, it's live in the room. And because I don't have the isolation and the separation for the control room, and I like to party rock the volume on the speakers, I have to keep everything muted by default, because otherwise the mics are hot in the room. And when I say hot, I keep them hot. I like to run things hot. I like to peg that in the red. And until it tells me it doesn't sound good. And then I have basically, like I think I told you, my drum setup, which is, here straight across, and I can take, 7, 8 patch cables and just go boom, boom like that. And then I cross patch my drums, and either that ISO booth or the live room drums have identical settings. Which, like I said, 9 times out of 10 works, but a couple of tweaks here and there and you're off and running. And then outboard gear, I mean, you know, some people will be like, oh, that's a lot of outboard gear, but a lot of studio geeks I know have a lot of outboard gear. I don't have a lot. I'm very traditional. I like the front. I like using a great console as it's what it was intended to do, which was the front end.
Yep.
And so the front end is all API. And after I run out of channels on the 20, if I run out of channels with 24, I've got 8 more there, which are 4 more 512 APIs, and then 4 of the Chandler ones, which are the TG ones, and I love them. They sound great too. So having both of those flavors is nice. And then the rest of it is all mostly tube compression. And so I have a lot of stuff running through tube compression just because I tend to feel like that does a little fuzzy warm thing that helps. And also these are great compressors. So like this is my Collins 356E that is always patched in on the bass, always. And then this is a Gates that Paul Reed Smith sold me. And that's a Gates SA39, which sounds incredible. That is on the mono Red 47 over the drums.
Oh, cool.
As well as the vocal mic. So this is a Collins 26W and this is a Collins 26U. Both very desirable. This one was considered the poor man's Fairchild for years, and now not so poor anymore. I've seen them upwards of 10 grand now, and I bought both of those on eBay for about $800 each, about 15 years ago, and they sound good. This is also my main vocal compressor. This one's dirty, very dirty, like a Fairchild, but very dirty and grainy. So it's fun to put on a room mic or an overhead and blow it up. I use a TG Zener limiter on my overheads. So those are always patched in for my overheads. It's a great compressor for everything, but I particularly right now love it on my overheads. And then I've got a Retro 176, which is sort of like their version of a 176 compressor.
Yeah.
And that's a really fun compressor also for vocals. The program mix bus, the reason why it says that is this is a Retro 2A3, which is basically their version of a stereo Pultec.
Beautiful.
And so it's all tube, very much like a Pultec EQ with the 2 bands. And I run that on my stereo bus. That's always going. So that and the bus compressor, the 529C bus compressor, are inserted always on the program bus. So when I make rough mixes or keeper mixes, I mix in the console. Mix in the box, and then it goes back out through the bus on the API and goes through the compressor, the 529C, and the Retro EQ.
Is that a little controller from Arturia?
Yeah, and I mean it's kind of
to be able to
just to get a quick thing for like if I need to do like a quick keyboard thing that doesn't require more than an octave. I mainly use the Nord Electro 6. It's USB MIDI'd up as well, so that I can at least go over here and if I have like a virtual instrument on, then I can have that be a controller for it. The audio inside of these engines are always on. I can just always get, sorry, it's on the worst sounds. But like, you know. They're always on and they're always going in. So I've got the ability to use synths and mellotrons and all that stuff from the actual devices themselves, but also they can be controllers. They can be a MIDI controller. So
that's killer.
And I keep the aux back here and this radial HDI, which I love for bass.
Okay.
So when the bass player's out there on the floor, he just plugs in out there and it's already going through the chain. And then when I sit back here and play, I just plug it in and it normals it. And then I've got bass here. And I'm a big fan of radial. So like the JX44 is great just for like, it's a guitar amp distribution, device. So you can do, 2 in and 4 out.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty great for all things being able to, route it everywhere. I do a lot of guitar. I'm a guitar player. So when I'm back here, I have my pedal board. It's going through here first, and then it comes out of here into one of these 4 outputs, And number one is the aux. I have my pedal board going into that. And then my aux happens to be hooked up through this 2-rock Bloomfield drive, which I love. And I just can sit back here and cut guitars, you know, all day long.
You got this Stealth Ergolab chairs. Wait, what are these? Phantom Focus?
Yeah, I got two.
What the heck? These are like the exact same chairs. That's crazy.
Yeah, I got 2 of them. Because I had one at my West Coast studio and then now I don't have that anymore. It's all here now. So,
interesting.
So I bought a couple of those because I loved them so much. The Phantom Focus e-chair. But no, it's good. It actually gives you great back support because, man, we're not supposed to be sitting. But they traditionally never made recording consoles for standing.
Right.
So you got to sit. I do like that more people have standing desks now, but because I like having a console, it kind of puts you at the mercy of not being able to stand. So these are pretty good and they're good on your butt.
I'm so torn on consoles because it's a huge investment. I'm also a Universal Audio fan and love console.
Yeah, it's
and
great.
My favorite thing, again, is being able to walk up and touch something in here, have that instant gratification. But with console, I gotta like turn around and be like, hold on, let me just unmute these first. Or if I leave it open and I'm in the same room, which is a bit smaller, you're gambling.
I've had to like get a workflow that made sense after I incorporated a console.
Yeah.
Because out west, I didn't even, for the last couple of years, I didn't even have a console out there.
Yeah.
So I was just using UA console and I have 3 X8Ps and those are sort of that was my whole studio. I still have that rig.
Yeah.
It's like it's my studio for if I'm out there, it's my satellite rig and it's 24 IO of great mic pre's and I can just monitor with a set of speakers because it's got the monitor control on the front of it. It's got talkback, all that. Pretty genius.
I'm a huge fanboy. I think they're like doing great things, especially with Luna. And that's a tough sell on guys who've been using whatever DAW for a long time. But...
See, I'm the opposite. I've been using Pro Tools practically since it started.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to be off of it.
Yeah, same here.
I can't wait to not be having to be on that platform anymore. It's been the industry standard for so long, but I gotta say I would be able to probably be on Luna full time.
Yeah.
Very soon.
Yeah.
There's a couple of more tweaks we're doing.
Yeah.
I say I've been a beta tester for them, so they've been super nice to like take my feedback on stuff. There's a couple of tweaks, and plus it's a brand new thing, so they're constantly updating it and improving it as they should, and fast. And so it's so close to me being able to just ditch everything else. And I do love it. It like I said, it just sounds good.
How do you like these PMCs?
I love them. And I'm not a guy that I consider to have the wizard ears that a lot of guys I love, like Eric Valentine and Greg Wells, my buddy Greg Wells and my buddy Ryan Hewitt, both were like simultaneously raving about these PMC 6s. I don't even know what they're called, 6.2s. And they were just raving about them. I'm like, well, those guys have good ears.
Yeah.
And I like what their sounds like. So Greg was great enough to get me in touch with the PMC rep. And so I demoed a pair here and I didn't give them back. So I just bought them because I was like, you know what? And before that, I had like 3 sets of speakers up. Right now, I'm just really enjoying one set of speakers because these sound great at low volume and they get loud and they have bass. They have bottom end.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there a sub?
No.
No sub.
Finally.
Ooh, and in a big open room like this, that's impressive.
Yeah, no sub, and they sound great. They just there's something about them when like Barefoots, which I've had before, where they had the subs built in them.
Yeah.
And they sound great, but these for some reason they don't have a sub, but they feel like they have almost the same bass response as a sub. And like I said, I'm not technical. I know I probably piss off like gear freaks because I'm just like, oh no, whatever works. I got the stands from them too. So, and then I've got the Prime Acoustic, platforms under them. Those ISO, I don't know what they're called, isolator or something.
Yeah.
I bought this farm about 3 years ago, and it's a farm, and so I'm just like I wanted to make it our full-time home. I built the studio about 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and I feel like I just now got it dialed in. I've just been using it to make my music. And so I don't really, it's not a commercial place. It's not open to the public, none of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a home studio.
So you just finished a record. Did you do all of that here?
I did. We did it all live here. And that was sort of like the guinea pig for my console, right when I got the console and got it all fired up.
So fun.
So we made the whole new record, which comes out Friday, on this console, and we cut it all live right here.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's fun to be able to break in a new, especially such a crucial piece like that on a new record. So it's called Glenn.
Yeah, it's my middle name, but it's also my great uncle, and based on a character that is a kind of a lonely, aging rock and roll bar singer. So all the songs have like a very almost like 70s piano balladeer vibe, and that's also the persona of the character and of the record. I purposely didn't want it to be just me on the cover as just a boring dude with tattoos. So it's like, I get bored with doing the same thing. So I enjoyed making something that felt like it was living inside of a character from a time frame. And so it's like, it's very much channeling a lot of my favorite piano-driven artists like Zevon and Jackson Browne and Elton John and Henley and all of that. There's so many. Billy Joel. I think during the pandemic, I got really, well, we all did. We all got pretty emo, and we all got pretty sad.
Yeah.
So I found comfort in listening to all of the nostalgic records I grew up on that were by my favorite storyteller, singer-songwriters on piano. And so I started sitting down at that piano again, which is the piano, that first piano I ever bought. That's the piano that I wrote a record that kind of put me on my course as a singer-songwriter back in like '03. I kind of revisited the piano, and there's something about that piano. Again, I told you earlier, I'm definitely an energy guy, and that piano's got energy. I don't know what it is. It's got something where it channels me to play a certain way, write a certain way on it. So I wrote the whole record on that thing, and then we recorded it, and I used a pianist that was good. I mean, I can play, the songs on record, but I think I played maybe 3 of them on the record. The rest of them we did live, and I played guitar, and Aaron Embry played the keys. So,
has that been primarily the only record you've done in here so far?
No, I've already done like several. I've worked on a Paris Jackson record coming out that I did. I've worked on a Bethany Cosentino from Best Coast. She has a solo record that we're finishing right now. I did a lot of that here. I just finished up a Watson Twins record 2 weeks ago here, because I've done a lot of this stuff by myself here, where I've worked by myself or just with the artist. Yeah, it's been super fun. And even though I've kind of technically only had this place up and running this year, I've already done that handful of stuff here, and I'm going to do more. And that's also because I was back and forth to LA still, whereas now I'm full-time here now. I'll be making a lot more records here.
Yeah.
Because I was out there making records in my little studio out there while this was just sitting here.
Yeah.
Which was torture, because I wanted to be here making records on it. I did this record for Morgan Kibbe from the band M83.
Oh, cool.
She has a solo record coming out that is also a character called Sue Clayton. I recorded a lot of that here, and we did it during the pandemic over like Zoom. Basically, she gave me a whole bunch of lyrics, and I put like over half the record to music. And we just came up with this big, beautiful sound that I don't know how to explain. It just sounds like Serge Gainsbourg meets, Lee Hazelwood. And she gave me the idea to do the Glenn record of mine. So, because I said, God, your record's so cool. I want to do that. I want to and I said, I want to collaborate with you on my record. So I sent her music bits with like a chorus written and a verse written or half written, and she finished the lyrics. And I said, well, I think I'm gonna have mine be a alter ego record as well, like yours. So Sue Clayton and Glenn. And Glenn even makes appearance on her record, and she sings a duet as Sue Clayton on my record.
That's so cool.
So it's pretty cool. But we did that record here, and that comes out in February of next year. So hers does.
Well, man, this is absolutely amazing. I am super happy for you. You know,
Awesome.
This is literally one of the most epic. I mean, this is probably the most epic home studio, you know.
The Epic
in a barn.
Studios. That's
But,
awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you doing it, man.
Absolutely. Well, I'll put, because this will come out on Monday, so for everyone who's watching, the record will be out. So I'll put,
great.
I'll put
Okay,
a link
good.
to the record in the description, so everyone can go follow you on Instagram and stuff and go check out the record.
Awesome. Love it.
Cool. All right, well, I'll see you guys in the next video, and yeah,